everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews. We are really excited today to bring you another episode of our Hidden Gems series where we try to profile movies that you can watch right from your home from one of the streaming services. And we have done Disney Plus, we've done Netflix, and now we're doing Amazon Prime. And we found some really, really good stuff. So I'm excited to talk to you about them. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey, Rachel. So good to hear your voice.
So good to hear you too. This is great. We're excited to get to talk about Amazon Prime. I think for some reason I felt like, oh, it's not as good. But when I started to dive into it, I was like, wow, there's probably a longer list on Amazon Prime than on any of the other, on my initial list for the other two services.
Yeah, it's one of those services where I was thinking, oh, I'm going to come up with greatest battles of Cuba or something like that. But then I started looking through it and I'm like, good Lord, there are some good choices on here.
Yeah.
I was spoiled for choice.
Yeah, right. It really is true. That was my experience as well. So yeah, we'll definitely have to do some multiple episodes of Amazon Prime. Once I saw there were a lot of movies that I definitely wanted to profile. So
yeah, first Disney, now Netflix, and now Amazon. We have achieved the three-headed monster. We have the King Ghidorah of Hidden Gems podcast.
Nobody can claim that they are wanting for entertainment these days.
Absolutely. It's like, oh, there's nothing on. Like, please.
What's wrong with you? Yeah, exactly. Well, very good. So let's dive in and get started. So my first recommendation is a movie called Instant Family. And this got some attention. It did okay. But I think the trailers really did it a disservice. It made it look bad. And it's by the same people who do Daddy's Home. So I think a lot of people thought, oh, no, it's going to be terrible. And, have Mark Wahlberg who's also in Daddy's Home. And this movie was so lovely. What a total pleasant surprise it was for me. It's about this couple that decides to adopt these three siblings, three kids, and just how hard it is. They definitely don't gloss over anything. They show you how tough the experience really is, but then they also have tons of heart, and also it can be quite funny. And after I saw this movie, I went in my car and I just cried. It was so emotional to me. These kids and the whole experience, and it's just something that's definitely very close to my heart. The whole foster care system and adoption system. And when I was on my mission, I worked with a lot of people that were adopting or were fostering or had been fostered, and so it's just something that's really important to me. And I thought it was handled so well, especially the end just made me bawl. And I love it. I think it's such a sweet movie, and I think that everybody should watch it.
Yeah, Mark Wahlberg is surprisingly underrated in the acting department, but sometimes it's like he needs to fire his agent because he picks some really bad movies. Like every time he's in something like The Departed or The Fighter, and then he's all of a sudden in Daddy's Home 2 and The Happening, and I just have to sit here and rub my temples like, he's a good actor. He's a good actor. He's much better than this.
He was just in Scoob, and that was terrible. And I think he's one of those actors that has to be very, very careful. Like if he's in the right part, he's really good. But he's not a thespian who can just like be a chameleon and fit into any role. He's not going to be a Daniel Day-Lewis anytime soon, or
imagine if you will, Mark Wahlberg in There Will Be Blood. Hey man, I drank your milkshake, man. I drink it up, man. What a cruel world that would be. But but I digress. But I believe Rose McGowan is also in Instant Family as well, and she's really good in there.
She's great. The whole supporting cast is lovely, and they do a good job of showing like all the different types of foster parents. And it has Isabella Merced, who played Dora the Explorer, and she's the oldest of the children. Octavia Spencer is in it. It's just lovely. Joan Cusack has a really weird cameo in it. I don't understand why they did that. But Julie Haggerty plays one of their mothers. I think it's Rose Byrne's mom. And I really enjoyed it. And I'm making my top 15 of the year in 2018. I really loved it.
Yeah,
have you seen it?
I didn't see it in the theaters, which was strange because I was in the mode of this was me beginning the mode of I'm going to see every movie in theaters that I possibly can. But that was just one that I missed. I ended up seeing it at home, and I really enjoyed it. And it was one of those movies where I was like, Instant Family, this is far better than it had any right to be.
I agree. And I really think the trailers undersold it. Made it look stupid, but it was actually not. And I think it's because it's basically, I think the director, Sean Anders, it's basically his story. If I'm not mistaken, I think him and his wife adopted 3 kids like this so I think that's why it comes from such a truthful spot, is because it is their life experience. So
yeah, it has a lot of heart.
Yeah, huge heart. It really does. So I definitely recommend it. What do you have first?
So my first choice is a classic. It's from 1962, and it is called The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. This was directed by John Ford, who directed The Searchers and just a ton of other movies. He is recognized as one of the great Western directors of all time. And while The Searchers is amazing, and it's amazing, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance is the one that I have by far seen the most. It tells the story of a lawyer named Ransom Studdard, played by James Stewart, who is amazing in everything he's in, who goes into this Western town called Shinbone, which has basically no law. It's the law of the gun. And Studdard has a run-in with the biggest outlaw of the bunch, Liberty Valance, who is played to a sickeningly evil degree by Lee Marvin. And he basically has the run of the place, and the only person who gives him any trouble back is Tom Donovan, played by John Wayne. And Wayne basically teaches Ransom how to adapt to the way of the gun, while Ransom rubs off on everyone else to say, hey, maybe education is something useful. The ending is just spectacular. It's worth the price of admission alone. The entire movie is great, but it's just really, really good stuff. It's dripping in atmosphere. It's funny at times, which is a trademark of John Ford. He can be deathly serious, but he can also be hysterically funny as well. I can talk about The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance for days, like days and days. It's one of those Westerns that doesn't get talked about because, there's the Dollars trilogy and The Searchers and so many other great ones, that Liberty Valance is just incredible, and no one really talks about it, and I think they should.
I think so too. I actually watched this last November for my blind spot pick that month over on my blog, and I really enjoyed it. I haven't seen that many Westerns. I just, it's not a genre that I'm that familiar with. And so that's part of the blind spot project, just try to get out of my comfort zone. And I didn't really know what to expect. I had seen The Searchers, and I had seen High Noon, and a few other Westerns, but not that many. And I thought this was a tremendous film. I really thought the characters were very, very well done. I mean, it kind of reminded me a little bit of Magnificent Seven in a way. I would put that in kind of that category a little bit. But I thought that I was surprised at how violent it is. I know we have this
yes,
idea of
yes.
of kind of movies from the 50s as being super kind of squeaky clean and whatever, but it's pretty gritty, this movie.
Yeah, especially the one of the opening scenes where we see Liberty Valance for the first time, and he beats Ransom Studdard nearly to death, and it's just it's horrifying. Like, I've seen less scary movies this year, and I always go back to Liberty Valance and be like, it's not that one scene.
Yeah, I mean, this is not your like Butch Cassidy, Sundance Kid kind of outlaw with a heart of gold kind of outlaw. Like Lee Marvin is a horrible person. He is
a scumbag.
So violent and terrible and scary, and the people are all really, really scared of him, including the John Wayne character, which takes something, I think. I mean, I wouldn't say maybe not scared, but like stay out of his way kind of a thing. And it's only this Ransom Stoddard, this lawyer, that will stand up to Liberty, but it's definitely he gets beat up pretty bad in doing so. And I was really surprised at how violent it was, and how that was I think it was necessary to show how to push Ransom's character and to push him further morally. Like, his decisions were not morally easy. If he had been an outlaw with a heart of gold, then that decision would be obvious and easy. But because he's so violent and pushed so hard, it makes the decisions way harder, and it makes his character more interesting. And yeah, I thought it was a really good movie. I gave it a 9 out of 10. It's really well shot, really well done. I mean, pretty much on every level. The acting's great throughout. So it's a great pick. People should definitely give it a shot. And supposedly they're going to be doing a remake of it, evidently.
Oh God, I hope not.
Yeah,
because Liberty Valance is a movie that is so close to my heart, and if they screw it up, it's not like a True Grit where the Coen brothers actually did a different take, and it's like, okay, that can be appreciated, but this is like The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. Like, this is a movie that I've seen conservatively 100 times, and I know every frame of it, and if it's going to be made, I just pray to God that they don't mess it up.
Yeah, it says here that they'd have a director named Chap Taylor, writer, who did Changing Lanes, that he's writing the script. They have a producer, let's see here. It says, in this version will be a young college-educated Black police officer who volunteers to be stationed in Harlem, hoping to make a difference. He's paired with a veteran Irish-American cop who I imagine is a version of John Wayne's Tom Donovan. This might be a subtle... Anyway, so it sounds like it's going to be a pretty loose adaptation.
Yeah, it's loose set in modern. Best from the sound of it.
Yeah. And... yeah, so that will be interesting. But at least I guess if you're going to do a remake, do something different. Don't just remake it. Is always a good rule of thumb. But anyway, people should watch it. It's a really good movie.
Watch the original, The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance by John Ford, one of the great directors of our time.
Even if you think you don't like Westerns, because I'm not a huge Western person, and this is just a good movie. It just is.
Absolutely. And for people who may be turned off slightly towards John Wayne movies, John Wayne was a much better actor than people give him credit for. Like, he had surprising levels of nuance and depth, especially in The Searchers, but that's another conversation for another time.
Yeah.
He is far better than people give him credit, I believe.
Yeah, he's kind of interesting when you think of him in comparison to Mark Wahlberg, in just the sense that both of them kind of need to know their lane, and then they do a really good job in that lane. And I think that John Wayne is a great example of an actor who he knew who he was and he knew his strengths, and he monopolized them. He's an Oscar-winning actor. He was an Oscar-winning actor. So,
have you by chance seen a movie called The Quiet Man?
Yes. Yeah.
That is an excellent example of sensitive John Wayne.
Yeah. Yeah, I love A Quiet Man. I mean, it's got one of the great kisses in all movies, The Quiet Man.
Absolutely.
And we even see it in E.T. Got the, but very good pick. Very, 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 very good pick. So my second pick is from a movie that I saw at Sundance last year, called in 2019, called The Report. And I think this movie didn't get the awards push that I think it deserved. It was out in theaters for like 2 weeks, and then it was put to Amazon Prime. It's a really good movie about this exhaustive report that was done by this guy named Dan Jones, who did this report on the methods of enhanced interrogation at Guantanamo Bay and whether it was effective or not. And he spent, I don't even know how many years, multiple years working on this report. And the report was pretty harsh on everybody. It was harsh on the Bush administration, harsh on the Obama administration. Like, so many people tried to stop it from being published, stop it from being effective, all these different things. He was threatened. He was, and it's really kind of a modern day Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. And Adam Driver plays Dan Jones. And the thing I guess I respected about it is that nobody was put on a pedestal. Nobody was safe. Like, they took shots at everybody, and everybody was willing to morally compromise themselves, except for Dan Jones, and which made you really root for him, I think. And I thought that Annette Bening playing Dianne Feinstein, who's the head of the committee and kind of over the report, she was excellent. She deserved a nomination, I think. And I thought the script was really good. It really drew you in. You were definitely rooting for Dan Jones. And it just gives you hope that there are good people left that are not willing to morally compromise themselves, that are willing to fight the fight and to do what is right. And it was just an excellent film. John Hamm, he plays like Secretary of State or something like that. I can't remember. Anyway, he plays some government person. He's fine. He's good. And I just think it should have been more of a player last year in the awards discussion. I think it's an excellent film. And
judging from the plot, I would have thought that it would have gotten like at least like a screenwriter nomination or something.
It's a really good script, and I thought at least that Annette Bening would get some nomination because she's very good in it. And it's, and they all have their reasons of why it should be pushed under pushed away and be ignored. And because we got to pass this, and we can't pass it without this, and being hidden or not talked about, or we're going to pretend like it's not there or whatever. And Corey Stoll is in it, who I love. I think he's so great.
Love Corey Stoll. Yeah. He was they killed off his character in House of Cards season 1, and I was really sad because I was so rooting for his character to get sober. But
me too. I think he's very handsome. Even at Ant-Man, I was like, I mean, I love Paul Rudd too, but Corey Stoll is, I think, very, very handsome. But anyway, it's a really good film. And if you just want some hope that there's good people out there in Washington fighting the fight, I think it's an important film to watch on that level.
Yeah, judging from the sound of the plot, it sounds a lot. It sounds similar to All the President's Men. I don't know if you've seen that or not.
Yeah, I mean, I actually would prefer this because I don't know, maybe I just had too high of expectations, but I felt like there was something kind of clinical about All the President's Men. I wanted to get to their personality and their heart and their who they were, and there was something about it that felt kind of like cold to me. I compared to something like Spotlight, which to me I got more of their emotion from the characters in Spotlight. I thought it was much better. Or even The Post, I thought was much better. I was a little bit disappointed in All the President's Men, to be honest, but I know it's a landmark film. But yeah, this to me has more. I'm more emotionally invested in these characters and in the story. But you know, it's I mean, it's a little different because this is them making this government report as opposed to, being a journalist, like slightly different. But anyway, people should check it out. It's on Amazon Prime, and Adam Driver is just, he's incredible. He will show up a second time on my list. But what do you have next?
So my second choice is from 1985, and this is in a bit of a gray area because everyone I've talked to about this movie absolutely loves it. It's Clue. It's based on the board game of the same name, the greatest movie based off a board game in history, and there is no competition other than that Battleship piece of crap, but we'll just pretend like that never happened. But Clue is a rather famous movie because they filmed 3 endings, and they showed it at different theaters and said, you want to catch all the endings, you got to see it more times. And it didn't help the box office ultimately. But the first time I saw Clue was at a theater close to me that shows older movies, and they showed all 3 endings in that screening. And I personally prefer the 3rd ending. But other than the 3 endings, Clue is an excellent movie. It's funny, it's witty. All the characters look like they're having the time of their lives, but the standout is my main man, Tim Curry, who is very much alive. He is not dead. He is very much alive. Because I messed up his death when we were talking about Muppet Treasure Island.
Yeah.
Who is, and he is the butler, and he just looks like he is having the time of his life. Other standouts include Michael McKean as Mr. Green, and of course Christopher Lloyd as Professor Plum. Who, I mean, it's Christopher Lloyd. He is fantastic in everything that he is involved with. This movie just feels a lot like what Knives Out from last year should have been. Like, it just feels like these characters bouncing off of each other, and it feels like it's just a bunch of scenarios, and they're just collaborating with each other, and it's just fantastic. Clue is one of those movies that I feel not a lot of people talk about, and absolutely everybody should.
Yeah, it's a really fun movie. It's a classic sort of mystery story, and you got all the clues, and you got all the characters, and who it's a whodunit. It's a whodunit, and so I don't know. You didn't like Knives Out?
I liked the acting and I liked the cinematography, but there was something about a certain choice that just rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm sure you know which one I'm talking about.
I had a lot of fun with it. I don't think it's that maybe not the most rewatchable movie, but I had fun with it. But yeah, I think that Clue it's a fun watch. It's very witty. The banter is very fun, which I always love. And yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to know how, I wish I could have that experience that they had with the different endings. That would have been really fun. I mean, I've seen the different endings, but to be able to go to the theater and see them would have been really cool. And I think it's pretty funny, and it's got such a great cast that it's
there's too many good actors to shake a stick at. I mean,
yeah.
It's got Daniel Craig with his best American accent, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. It's got Chris Plummer in it, who's phenomenal. Chris Evans, Don Johnson's in it. He's really good. Jamie Lee Curtis, always excellent.
Well, and same with Clue. I mean, Clue has a great cast as well of just
absolutely
wonderful.
Michael McKean, Christopher Lloyd, Tim Curry, as I mentioned. That's just naming the ones off the top of my head.
Yeah, I think Madeline Kahn is in it.
Yep.
I love her so much. She's so hilarious. It's a great pick. It's a classic. And so people, if you haven't watched Clue, for goodness sakes, what are you doing? Watch it.
And before we move on, kids, don't forget, communism is a red herring.
That's right. Okay, well, my next pick is called Fighting with My Family. And this movie was released last year. And it is about a WWE wrestler. And her name is I'm trying to, where is it? I lost.
Well, her ring name is Paige, but
Paige, that's right.
But her real name is I believe it's something Knight. It's the Knight family.
Right. So it's about this wrestler Paige and her family, and her whole family is super invested in wrestling, and they actually own like a little training gym. And her brother is desperate to become a wrestler, but she ends up getting the opportunity. And so really the movie is about this family. It's Fighting with My Family. And I love underdog sports movies. I'm a huge sucker for anything that you're like, yeah, woohoo, and you're like cheering and makes you feel good. And I love that. I'm not even that big into sports, but I love sports in the movies when it's done well.
Me neither, but I love sports movies to death. We in our Disney Plus episodes, we've recommended several ones like Glory Road and The Greatest Game Ever Played, and so it's one of those. It's a weird case with me because I normally do not enjoy watching live sports, with maybe the exception being the Super Bowl. But give me a sports movie, and I'm just like, you had me at hello.
Yeah, exactly. Me too. And so. I was skeptical because I'm not interested in wrestling at all. I think especially because I'll watch a basketball game here and there. I'll watch a baseball game here and there. But wrestling is just not, I'm not interested in that at all. And I didn't really think much of it. And then I saw it, and it was so charming. I really enjoyed this film. I loved the family aspect of it. And the way that they learned and grew together as a family. They were an atypical family, but such a loving family, which I think is always a really great thing to see and to watch with your family. If I had kids, like, I want them to see this and be like, oh, this is a different kind of family, and we shouldn't judge them because they love. I think. There's one of the quotes that one of our people in our church said is that, don't judge me because I sin differently than you. And I think you could also flop that around to, don't judge me because I love differently than you. Like, if we're different, that's okay, as long as we're a family and we love each other. And I just thought they were great. I really liked the relationship between Paige and her brother, and him getting over his resentment at not being able to make it as a wrestler, and his jealousy of her. And also that, like, the whole experience when she finally gets the opportunity is really hard, and she really struggles with the motivation to keep going. And I thought that was all done very well, and you could totally see her point of view. And you see The Rock here and there. He's fine. I mean, he's charming, but it's a minor role. But I don't know, it's a really heartwarming family drama.
I have when this first came out, I was like, I have very mixed feelings about it, because I saw it and I was kind of uneasy about it, because I am a wrestling fan, and and when it comes to Paige's career, because it's so recent, I am unfortunately burdened with knowledge, and I normally don't bring up stuff like this, but a lot of the stuff involving Paige's career was cut out in the movie, and I normally don't. I'm not a stickler for that stuff, but I'm just. You clearly breezed over that for dramatic effect, or you cut this out. But having seen it again recently, I understand why they did it, because this is not meant really for me, who is a really hardcore wrestling fan. This is meant for more of the casual fan who normally wouldn't know about Paige unless it was made by a production company that was run by The Rock and written by Stephen Merchant, who was in the UK office, by the way.
So that makes sense. That's interesting.
So my perspective is slightly different. I don't love it clearly as much as you do, but that's okay. It's one of those where just like, I wish you would have included that, but at the same time, I get why you didn't.
Yeah. I can see that. That makes sense. I really liked how it was about a whole family, and wasn't
that was my favorite part of the whole movie. Lena Headey was awesome. Nick Frost, he's hysterical in anything he's in.
Yeah, because if it had just been sort of her story starting at like training camp, and that would have been really bland. But I liked the family aspect of it. So what do you have next?
So my next choice is from 2011, and it is called Super 8. This was written and directed by J.J. Abrams. We all know who he is, for better and for worse. This was made in between the two Star Trek films he made, and it tells the story of these group of kids who are making a movie. And while they're making one of the shots, a train derails near them containing an alien. And this movie combines a lot of different elements: the alien aspect and the going home aspect of E.T., the kid aspects of something like The Goonies, and a lot of J.J. Abrams' other story points, like the main kid and the father, who is played by Kyle Chandler, have a very strained relationship because the boy's mother has passed away when this movie starts. And Elle Fanning's father is an alcoholic. So it's a lot of difficult stuff with fathers. But this movie was inspired by a lot of Abrams' influence, including Steven Spielberg, who was actually a producer. Super 8 is very underrated. I have a feeling that J.J. Abrams has gotten treated unfairly a little bit because of his work on The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker, which, my thoughts on that have been very well publicized. But at the end of the day, J.J. Abrams is far better than people give him credit for. He's an excellent visual director, and he can tell a good story. He didn't really do very good Star Wars movies. But again, that's another conversation for another time. We're talking about Super 8. Super 8 is surprisingly really good, and it was one of my favorite movies of 2011, and it was in like the top 5 of that year. I was kind of thinking, like, should I put Drive at number 1 or Warrior or Super 8, and it was a 3-way tie. But Super 8 at the end of the day is really really good.
Yeah, it's definitely JJ's most personal feeling project. It's the one that feels the most him, I think, of any of the things that he's done, because he's just been in done so many franchises, films, and this is one that is his own ideas, even though it definitely gleans off of a lot of other films like E.T. and things like that. But I don't know, it feels like the most insightful into who he is as a filmmaker and as a person. And yeah, I think, and anytime you have Kyle Chandler in the movie, that's a win for me. He's an incredible actor, in my opinion. So I do enjoy it. I haven't seen it for a long time, but it's one that I should probably revisit it, because I remember enjoying it. for sure. Yeah. So no, I enjoyed it, and so that's a good pick. All right. So my next pick is The Farewell, which is another movie about family. And
love this movie to pieces.
I saw it at Sundance also in 2019. It's such a good year that year at Sundance. And so this movie is about this. It stars Awkwafina as this woman whose grandparents were over in China. Her parents came over to the U.S. Her grandma Mima is still in China. Her grandma gets diagnosed with cancer, and they don't want to tell her, so they come up with an excuse of they're going to all go there for her cousin's wedding, but they're really there to say goodbye. And I loved this film. I lost both of my grandmas last year, and so it was an interesting experience. So I saw this movie and I really enjoyed it. The pacing I think is a little slow, and it could be a little tighter, but I still really enjoyed it at Sundance. And then both of my grandmas passed away, and then it came out in the theater, and so then I saw it again, and I was a wreck that second time because of all the personal baggage, kind of coming to it. And I think that Shenzhen Zhao plays the grandma. I can't believe that she didn't get nominated for supporting actress. I was shocked for Nai Nai. She's so good as this grandma, and the ending when she's waving, because that my grandma would always do that, stand outside and wave as we were driving away, and that got me bad. And it's just, you have all these different, I don't know who couldn't really, especially if you're from a big family like I am, like I so related to I don't know, just her dealing with all of her uncles and her dealing with her parents, and how she's gonna live her life, and I really enjoyed it. So you got to see it then?
Yes, it was on a very limited run, but I found a theater close enough to see it. It actually came to my local theater, which I was very grateful for. The Farewell was something when I watched it, I was like, that was good. I'm not sure if it lives up to the hype, but it was good. Mm-hmm. But then the more I thought about it, the more it just got better and better and better and better. My only exposure with Awkwafina was in Ocean's 8. And while I didn't hate that movie, I didn't entirely love it either.
Yeah, same.
And seeing her in Awkwafina, or seeing her in The Farewell, I was sitting there like, whoa, where has this actress been my whole life? Because she is excellent.
Yeah.
And when I first saw it, the movie aggravated me. I'm like, just please tell her like something. Why are you not telling her? Because it just drove me nuts. But then the more I thought about it, the more I was just like, okay, I guess it's better for her not to live her last days in fear and just try and live the best to where she can, because both of my grandmas are still alive. My condolences, Rachel. I am sorry for you for that. But it just, I totally get it, because I was like, okay, she wants to live like the rest of her life as how she fits it, and not like expecting death to come. So I guess that's nice.
Well, I mean, it's just different cultures. I would feel like I would want to know, just so I would have a chance to say goodbye to everybody. But then again, are you happier just being able to live your life? And I don't know. It's a tough question, but if you like this movie, The Farewell, I really recommend. And if you like Parasite, I think another good movie to check out. This is a little bonus, but it's not on. It's you have to. It's only streamable. I mean, you can purchase it on Amazon Prime, but it's on Hulu. It's a movie called Shoplifters, which I also recommend, about an unusual family in Japan directed by the great Hirokazu Kurita. And I would say all three of those movies, Parasite, The Farewell, and The Shoplifters, all have a very similar sort of pacing and aesthetic, and they have different messages and different things, but I don't know. It's really neat that we're getting to see more and getting a bit more exposure from these really talented directors from all around the world, and getting to see their cultures, and people shouldn't be afraid of the subtitles. People should should embrace and The Farewell is mostly in English, so
yeah. It's so I guess the last note should be everyone out there, love your grandmas, because you never know when they're gonna leave.
That's right. I mean, I was very fortunate to be able to have both of my grandmas until I was 38 when last year. So I had them for a lot longer than many people do. So I was blessed. But yeah, we definitely if your grandma's still there, give her a call and tell her you love her.
Yeah, one of the blessings I've had during this pandemic is that I've been able to help my grandmother on my mom's side, my mom's mom, with her garden, and it's just been 3 weeks of just us clearing out trees and ripping up sod and just doing general landscaping, because like she has basically a jungle in her yard. Like, it's out of control. And now it looks far better, but it's just because I was like, this pandemic, and I had all these plans for the year, and it just, what does God have against me, and etc. But it's just, it wasn't until we were almost done that I was like, I was spending all this time with my grandmother, clearing out the trees and stuff, and we've been talking and chewing the fat and clearing out stuff. It's like, it just gave me a new perspective and a new gratitude, because it's like, just when you think something is gone, something else takes its place. So
yeah, exactly. That's great. I'm glad that you've been able to do that for your grandma.
And I don't know, and I don't know if you heard me or not, but my condolences for your grandmothers. I'm sure they were wonderful people.
Yeah, they're really, really good, special. And it's always nice when you can do like it's good to do all different kinds of work for people, but there's something I think really satisfying about doing like physical labor like that for somebody that you love, and then you can look and see, you can really see the physical difference. Like, that's, I think, very satisfying. So I'm glad you got to do that for your grandma.
Me too.
All right, what do you have next?
So my fourth choice is a documentary series from 2009, and it's called World War II in HD. This was a show that I watched every episode of when it came out, and this was in my peak History Channel watching, where I was watching Pawn Stars and Top Shot and Modern Marvels and just so many great shows and American Pickers that History was just putting out. And World War II in HD was one of them. It's narrated by Gary Sinise, which, given the fact that he loves this country's veterans, and he is the face of the Wounded Warrior Project, that's about as good a person as any to narrate this show, because it is really, really fantastic stuff. This was the first time this unseen footage was released in color and in HD. It had been done. Footage had been released in the early 2000s in World War II in color, which is on Netflix, by the way, but not in HD. And they did a really good job of making sure that none of this footage has ever been seen. So I don't know if that was a gimmick or not, but I didn't know the difference, because it all looked fantastic. There's some harrowing stuff in this, though, I should say. It is not for everyone. There's some uncomfortable stuff. I can't remember which episode, if it was in episode 5 or 6, but there is footage of Japanese nationals jumping off of cliffs because they had been so brainwashed that they wouldn't dare be in the company of of Allied prison camps. They would just rather take their own life. And that was just horrifying to watch. And then in episode 1, you actually get to hear the first news broadcasts of Pearl Harbor. I could just imagine people driving along and listening to like something like music and then be like, we interrupt this program to bring you news of Pearl Harbor. And it's harrowing stuff. I can say safely that this isn't like Ken Burns quality or anything like that. It just depends on how much History Channel you like in your gumbo. But in general, World War II in HD is just real quality stuff.
So is it a similar style to Ken Burns as far as having like the narrator and the kind of things, or what kind of style documentary is it?
It's I don't believe there are any cutaways. It's just the footage, and then you hear Gary Sinise, and then you hear a soldier that they brought in talk about their experience and rinse and repeat. It's not like a Ken Burns one where it's narration, picture, and then cut away to somebody. It's all on the footage.
Okay, that makes sense. That sounds really good. I love stuff like that. I really do.
This was around a time when the History Channel was producing nothing but World War II stuff. Mm-hmm. And now it's like World War I is now all the rage with like 1917 and stuff like that.
That's interesting. I will definitely have to check that out. I love documentaries, and it covers the whole war, both fronts, Europe and Japan.
Yes, they actually make a point that they show this footage of soldiers stationed in the Pacific watching the VE Day celebration, and they're like, did they just forget about us? Right. which is very, very sad, because you remember, oh, the Nazis weren't the only ones we were fighting, the Japanese also.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense. Okay, good. That sounds really good. All right. So my next choice is definitely different than that. We have Logan Lucky. This is directed by Steven Soderbergh. And
this is a favorite of mine. Yeah. I have seen this movie 50 times, maybe more.
Yeah. So this stars Adam Driver and Channing Tatum as these two brothers who Channing Tatum gets fired from his job working doing construction at this racetrack,
Charlotte Motor Speedway.
Yeah, so he's figured out as he's worked there how they handle the money, and he develops this whole heist plan, and it's sort of a redneck heist movie is the idea, and they get Daniel Craig out of prison, and he's hilarious in it. And I thought this movie was so funny. It totally nailed that kind of like redneck ridiculousness that was definitely something that I grew up with in a small town. So it definitely rang true to me. And the heist is clever enough. And I don't know, especially at the end when Daniel Craig's character he's waiting for the Game of Thrones book, and I don't know, that was hilarious. And I just, it's just so funny, and Adam Driver's so funny. He's so good at comedy. He should be in more comedies. And
I agree.
I mean, it's pretty amazing when you compare it to his work in The Report, which is not comedic at all. It's very serious. Right. And it's like, wow, he's a really good actor.
Yeah, this movie is so good. Like, I was blown away by how good it was when I saw it in the theaters. I did something rare. I actually went and saw it again. I used to do it all the time. I don't do it all that much anymore. But I have a very special relationship with Logan Lucky, because this movie came out in the late summer of 2017. And around that time, or especially where I live in Florida, Hurricane Matthew happened. And And Logan Lucky was the last movie that I saw at my theater before it was closed to prepare for the hurricane. So it has special meaning for me. So
That's cool.
outside of that, though, this movie is hysterical. It's directed by Steven Soderbergh, who directed all of the Ocean's movies and others, and the heist alone is worth the price of admission. Where Joe Bang is like combining gummy bears, the contents of 2 bleach pens, and something or else in a plastic bag, and he's writing out the equation on the side of the wall for the Logan boys to understand. And he's like, "We're dealing with science here," and the Southern accent on Daniel Craig is incredible, especially coming from a British man. Like, this is far and away from his Road to Perdition accent, where he was so cliche. But here, it's like, this guy's British? I had no idea. But then, the topper on that whole thing is when the bomb comes back and Adam Driver catches it, and they're just like, "Hang on, don't let it," and then Joe Bang grabs it, opens it up, and he's like, "Oh, I forgot to add pressure." And he shakes the bag, throws it back into the canister, shoots it in, and then it goes in and it blows up. Just such funny stuff.
Yeah. And don't you agree that whole thing with the book at the end, with when they getting him back into getting back into the prison, that whole thing is hilarious.
I was expecting there to be like, okay, this is not going to make sense, but how they did it, I was like, wow, they made it all connect. Like, I was seriously like, I was rewatching it for this episode, and I was like, there's got to be plot holes, and then I was like, no, they found a way to all make it make sense.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think feasibly anyone could rob an entire speedway, but you know, in the context of the story, Steven Soderbergh made it work.
Yeah, I think so too. I just think it's really underrated. It's one of those movies that, like, kind of for some reason fell through the cracks. Didn't really get seen by enough people, because it's just funny. It's a funny movie with really good performances, and so people should definitely check it out.
You Logan boys must be as simple-minded as people say. People say that.
Yeah. I almost wish we could have a sequel and see what they do next. That would be funny.
Logan even luckier.
Yeah. I'd watch that all day. But
Me too.
What's your final pick?
So my final pick is from 2017, and it is called The Big Sick. This was an Amazon joint that got a limited release in my theater, and I believe I saw this on New Year's Day 2018 at like midnight or something. It was a 10 o'clock showing New Year's Eve, but it ended at midnight New Year's Day. So I have a very special relationship with that one as well. The Big Sick is from the mind of Kumail Nanjiani, who is one of the funniest men in America working today. Like, he is hysterical. Every movie that I've seen him in, he has just knocked it out of the ballpark, and this is just amazing. It's the story of Kumail Nanjiani, who is a stand-up comedian. I know, crazy, right? And he falls in love with this woman, and she finds out that he is set to be in an arranged marriage. But then she gets involved in a car accident and in a coma. So Kumail Nanjiani's character basically stays by her side and helps her get better while meeting up with her parents, played by Helen Hunt and Ray Romano, who are just hysterical in the movie as well. There's a stress eating scene, like, need I say any more? But The Big Sick is just, it's one of those movies that is like, I'm like, comedies are not really that good anymore. But then I watch The Big Sick. I'm like, I'm actually pretty wrong, because this actually has a lot of heart to it. It's got pretty smart jokes. It's funny. It's really funny. And it has a really, really good ending. Like, it came out of nowhere for me, because I was sitting there like, oh, this is going to go out on a sad note. But then the ending happens, and I'm like, this was excellent. So yeah, The Big Sick is just, it's really, really good.
Yes, I definitely agree with you. I actually was debating. It's kind of funny because I was debating between The Big Sick and Logan Lucky, and I picked Logan Lucky. And then I found out that you had
Logan
Logan
Lucky on my
Lucky
list.
on your list, and so then you swapped out for The Big Sick. So either way, we were going to cover this film one way or another. But yeah, no, I really enjoy The Big Sick. I think that it's, especially for a romance that she is out for, she's in a coma for most of it. The fact that they still make that work is pretty impressive. And I especially, I love Ray Romano and Holly Hunter in the film. I think they're so strong as her parents. I think they do a really good job, and it's super super charming, and everybody everybody will. I even like his like comedy friends, like even they're fun. Just the whole movie is really charming, like, and they don't demonize his parents and his family for what they do. You can understand their perspective and who they are, and so I think that works really well. And it's just, yeah, people should see it. It's really
They
good.
remind me of the parents of from Blinded by the Light. They're not bad people. They
Yeah.
just have their own way of doing things. And
Mm-hmm.
especially in Blinded by the Light, the father basically used his way of seeing things to make a better life for his wife and their kids. So he's not a bad person. He just believes in a certain way because that's what gave him the best life possible.
Yeah. And and they want to protect their their children, and that's a natural instinct to do, and so you can understand it from there. And also they they're brought up with certain beliefs, and it's hard sometimes to have your kids step away from those beliefs. That's tough. But I thought he was so loving to his family, and the way that all got kind of resolved was really lovely. And so yeah, it's a really good pick that I think people not only will laugh, but they'll be able to relate to. If you've ever had any kind of conflict like that in your family, you should be able to relate to it. And so yeah, it's a very good pick. So let's go over our picks. So for me, I had Instant Family, The Report, Fighting with My Family, The Farewell, and Logan Lucky.
And my picks are The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance, Clue, Super 8, World War II in HD, and The Big Sick.
I think this might be the strongest 10 movies that we've ever done.
It's I think it may be the most diverse. I don't know,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah. So way to go, Amazon. Way to go.
don't sleep on Amazon, y'all.
No. So let us know if you're listening, if you've been watching anything on Amazon Prime. What is some of your favorites? I know they have original programming as well. So if you are super into Mrs. Maisel or whatever it might be, let us know and we can talk about it, and that would be really fun. And so Ryan, where can people find you?
You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. And on my YouTube channel, it's RyanCam Movie Reviews. Still churning away with the AFI project. In the coming week or two, I'll be covering movies like The Searchers, Star Wars, Psycho, and 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is being recorded on a Monday, so City Lights has already been posted, but the rest will be coming out throughout the week. And I'm going to be starting up a new series where I talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender in long form and in detail, because it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time.
Great. That sounds really wonderful. Very good. Well, you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all of our social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So you can check out, I did a whole video where I profiled my first experience going back to the movie theater, which is crazy and fun. And so I'm really proud of that. So check that out over on my channel. And you can also find me at the Hallmarkies podcast, where we are podcasting up a storm about all different kinds of fun movies. So check that out as well. And we also have our merch store, which has tons of fun designs. And we have our Patreon group, which we really appreciate any support that anybody can throw behind there. It means so much to us. And so thanks so much, Ryan. This is always so much fun to do. And we'll talk again next week.
Yes,
bye, everyone.
We certainly will. Bye.